What's up again? This is another payment integration video tutorial, and in this video I'm gonna show you how to integrate Amazon Payment Services standard merchant page integration method, the one right here in front of you on the screen, and I'm gonna show you how to integrate it. But first, let me show you the end result of what we're trying to implement. End result looks like this. This is the end result of what we're trying to implement. And to show you how it works, I'm gonna go ahead and grab a test card. So I'm gonna grab the Visa card, perform the payment. You're just gonna get the result immediately after. Now this is over here is just my result page, which is in this component. Right, just displaying this over here. I'm gonna zoom in so you can see, but you can customize it to show whatever you want. Anyways, this is the end result of what we're trying to implement, and I'm gonna show you what is exactly happening behind the scenes here before we go to the coding portion of this video. First of all, when I'm showing the checkout page, what's happening as soon as that checkout page appears is that my app requests send some information about the order to the server, my server, and then ask that server to generate a signature. And that signature is basically a hash with random alphanumerical characters that's going to be used to authenticate my payment requests. So the app requests that from the server sends it back to the app, and then the app will use that to post the request directly to Amazon Payment Services API and ask it for a payment page, which is the payment page that you just saw now. Anyways, Amazon Payment Services will return that payment page iframe back to my app directly, where the cardholder can enter the card information into that page, and then the card information gets submitted directly to Amazon Payment Services, making it a PCI compliant solution. Then after the card information input is done, APS will post the tokenized card to a server endpoint of your choosing. And then using that, you're going to create another signature for the payment request and pass that along with the order details and along with the tokenized card to APS via API and perform the payment, and then you'll get the payment result back, and then you can display that back to your merchant app. So it's very simple, very straightforward. Now I'm going to show you the code. Now we have two APIs in this implementation only. This is the first one over here. This is implemented in a form on the merchant app in the checkout page. This is what the form looks like. Nothing is displayed really in the form. You will just populate information. You populate this information here to the form programmatically, which is very easy to do in ReactJS, and then submit the form, and then you will get the iframe where you can enter the card information shown in the page. So this is the first API, and then this is the second API for the payment that I showed in my diagram. Now after you receive the tokenized card from APS, you're going to use that and put together a request that looks like this to perform the actual payment, which I'm going to show in a bit. So okay, now that I showed you this and I showed the end result and I showed you the diagram of what's happening, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to implement this thing. So okay, so this is the same project that I showed earlier, but without the payment form and with just the checkout page that you can see over here and a result page that I've coded here, and it doesn't have anything except it says result page. You can see it if I navigate to it like this. Later I'm gonna modify this to just say your order is approved or your order is declined after the payment is done. Okay, so now we can start the implementation. Let's go back to the integration guide, and in the integration guide there will be two basic steps, like I said before: the form and the payment request. So first, let's deal with the form. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this, and I'm gonna paste it in my ReactJS project. Here I'm gonna create a component that will contain that payment form, and paste in my form here. Now I gotta make some changes because this code has some typos in it. Now I gotta make some changes to clean this up to make it work with ReactJS. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna replace this with dev. Then I'm gonna fix the quote marks over here. These are not regular quote marks. You need to replace them with the one on your keyboard. So replace all and then take the other one and do the same thing. There you go. So got some problems. So here there's no backslash ending the component, so you gotta add those. And And over here it's input in all caps and name in all caps. I'm gonna change it to be smalls. Okay, no more errors. But here there is an extra space that I remove. And oh, I gotta go back here to this component and display the actual component that I'm implementing. So here I'm gonna add some space. One more error. The style is not compatible with ReactJS. I gotta remove this for now. And this one as well. Now, okay, the form is showing, but the width is a bit weird. So I gotta fix it to be 100%. Now here it is. I need to get rid of this button because I'm not gonna use it. I'm gonna submit the form programmatically. And you know what? I actually don't need to put this here. I was gonna implement it in a smarter way. So instead of having these fields here and just hard coding them, I'm gonna create a JSON that'll have the value for each one of these on my server side, and I'm gonna send it back to the client side here, along with a signature. And I'm gonna loop through that JSON, and I'm gonna add these input fields inside this form programmatically. So I'm gonna show you how to do this. First, we gotta create a method here that's gonna generate the signature. So let's do that using useEffect method. Now what this method will do is that it's gonna execute some code when the component appears for the first time. So here, if I do test and I refresh the page, it's printing test as soon as the component shows. But instead of doing that, I'm gonna have it create the signature as soon as the component appears. So here I'm gonna define a create signature method. Now here's when I'm gonna make my API call to the server to create the signature. And I'm gonna need to pass the order information to my server side. So for that, I'm gonna need to pass customer email, amount and currency. We need to add a field here that displays the customer email. So here we can define something. Here we can define the email as a global variable. So that's the email. Now for the amount, this is my card items, let's say, and we're gonna sum the amounts in this object array, which I'm already doing actually here. So this is my amount. So let's take that. Okay, now we're gonna use Axios to make that API call to my server side. So here, I'm gonna implement that API call. There you go. Now, what I'm gonna pass to my URL is just the order information here. So it's gonna be the amount, the currency, and the email. What I'm gonna get as a response from this is a JSON that has the list of values that I can loop through and create those inputs that are over here. For now, I'm not gonna do anything. It's time to do some backend development. So I'm gonna put this code over here on hold and create a project for the create signature endpoint. So let's do that. Okay, so this is the endpoint where I'm gonna be creating the signature. I'm gonna deploy it and I'm gonna use it in my merchant app. So here we need to get the values that we need to input this form. So I'm gonna copy this here so I can see it. Now I need to create a JSON. Okay, now let's fill in some values here. First of all, the server command, it's tokenization as defined in the integration guide. Language is going to be English. That's in almost every program. We need to get the merchant identifier and the access code. For the merchant identifier, you need to log in to your test account. So if you don't have an Amazon Payment Service test account, you can just Google it and you're going to be able to find in the first link the page where you can sign up for a test account. So here it'll say join us in the top right. Click on that, and in my case I already have a test account, so I can just sign into it. But for you guys, you're gonna have to create a test account so you can get the credentials to do this integration. But after you do, log into your test account and you're gonna land on a page that looks like this. And in this page, you're gonna have to go to merchant management on the left here, and in merchant management you're gonna select your merchant account. Here just click on the text in bold, and here click on security settings. And then here you're gonna find the credentials that you need to do this integration. So merchant identifier, which was one of the values that are asked for there, is here. So take this, copy it, in your code. I'm just gonna hard code it like this, but you're supposed to use something like environment variables to securely put these values in here. Now my access code is right under it. Just take that, copy it, paste it here. Okay, for the return URL, we don't have that yet. We need to create another endpoint for doing the payment. So for now, I'm gonna just use a placeholder. I'm gonna use this website as a temporary placeholder. What this website does is that when you post something to it, it just displays what was posted to it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna append the order details, the amount, the currency, and the customer email encrypted at the end of this URL, and that's gonna make sense why we need to do that later. Okay, now the signature, I'm gonna show you in a bit how to generate it, but the merchant reference, we gotta generate a random unique merchant reference of our own. So for that, you can just ask ChatGPT for a code that generates a random string for you. So let's do that. There you go. We can just use this in our code, slap it here, and we're gonna use this to create the order ID. So here, I'm just gonna do let order ID, or I'm gonna just call it the same thing they call it, merchant reference. Let new merchant reference be this random string of a length 8. So take that and add it to your parameters. Now the last thing we have to do is the signature. Now to learn how to generate the signature, you need to go to the Amazon Payment Services guide again. Now here on the left side, in a section called In Common, there is a section that explains how you're going to generate the signature. So to generate the signature, you're going to need to follow these steps. You're going to sort out all the parameters and order them like this example of yours. Let me zoom in. You're going to have to take all your parameters, put your request phrase here in the beginning and the end, and then organize your parameters like this. So the name of the parameter equal the access code in this case, amount, and all that stuff. So in our case, the parameters are going to be the parameters used for the form here. So I need to do service command equal tokenization, language equal en, and etc, etc. And in the beginning of that, you're going to need to use your request phrase, and at the end of that, you're going to need to use the request phrase. Here, instead of pass, you're going to have to get this value from your merchant account. So again, go here in the same place you got your access code. Here's going to say SHA request phrase. This is the value that's going to replace pass in that algorithm. So here, instead of putting pass, you need to put the this value, the request phrase. But I'm going to show you a way to make your life easier. So instead of following all these steps, what I did is just I copied this instructions over here, all of this stuff, and I just went to ChatGPT and I asked him to give me a method that can perform these steps given a JSON of the said parameters and the request phrase, something like this. Anyways, it'll give you an answer here that does that, and this is exactly what I'm using in my code that I just showed you earlier in my endpoint. This is a generate signature, and it does the same steps. It just does all of that for you instead of having to worry about it and break your head over it. So this is how I'm going to generate my signature. What I'm going to use is the payload without this signature parameter. So what I'm going to do is that in form payload, I'm going to delete. Actually, instead of deleting, I'm just going to remove it altogether from here. Okay, I'm going to pass it signature, the payload, which is this form payload, and the request phrase. Let's go get that from the portal again. Here. Let request phrase equal to this value. And I'm going to put this here. And this is going to be my signature. And after I get it, I'm going to add it back to the form like this. So form payload, just do signature, and then set the value to that signature that you just got. And this is what we're going to return to the front end. So response status 200 send form payload, which is gonna have the signature and everything nice, everything else. Wait, but you're probably wondering why I have this method over here, encrypt order details, and why I'm passing the amount and currency and customer email in the first place. It's because I need to send it. So when this thing posts the tokenized, so after the customer input the card information and the card gets tokenized, APS is going to post the tokenized card directly to this return URL. And when it does that, I want it to also send over there the order details. So this is just a clever way of passing it from this endpoint to that endpoint, is to just encrypt the order information and put it appended to this return URL, and then I can access it in the other endpoint. It's gonna make sense when we get to implement the payment endpoint in a bit. So let's just do that for now, and we gotta do that before we create the signature. So actually, I'm gonna remove this altogether from here, and I'm gonna do it here. So here what's happening is that I'm creating one long string of all the details that I got from the client side. I'm gonna put it in the body directly like this instead of doing body.order. Okay, and I pass the string here and the request phrase here, this request phrase. So this has to be in the beginning of the request here. And then after that, I'm gonna get the encrypted order hash, and I'm gonna append it to the return URL. But we don't have this yet, so we're gonna need to use the test endpoint that I showed you from earlier. So here it is. Okay, I'm gonna add it to the form payload as well, just like what I'm gonna do with the signature. Cool. So after that, I create the signature, and then I add the signature, and then I add it to the form payload, and then I pass the form payload back to my client side like this. We can test this in the emulator first to see if we made an error before we deploy it. So Firebase emulators. Okay, so here's my test endpoint. This is Postman. This is my test payload. I'm gonna put it here. There you go. Now it works. I'm gonna respond to the signature, and then I'm gonna loop through all this and create the inputs inside the form in the client side. So let's just deploy this and test it with our merchant app. There you go. Firebase deploy. While it's deploying, let's go back and do some work over here and make sure everything is okay. So create signature response. That's gonna contain the signature. And now I need to loop through whatever I get back from here. I need to loop through it and create the inputs that are gonna be in here. So let's delete all of this stuff. We're not gonna need it. We're gonna populate it on our own. Let's call this payment form. And I've already asked ChatGPT to create a code for me that's gonna do that looping and adding the input fields for me. There it is. I basically asked it what I wanted to do. I said, look at this form. Imagine if I didn't have anything inside and I wanna loop through a JSON to dynamically input the fields there, and it gave me this code. So I'm just gonna use this. I'm gonna copy this stuff over here, put it here. Data is gonna be the payload that we get back from create signature response, if there's no error. Okay, payment form is here. All right, let's make sure it's the same capitalization. Okay, and after we do that, we need to make the form submit itself so that we can get the payment form displayed here. To do that, I need to use ref, this one over here, and I need to create a reference for the form. So go back to my form over here. I'm gonna need to create a ref for it. Let me just clean up things over here a bit. Okay, so here in this component, I need to create the reference, and then here I need to use it. Simply like that. Okay. And I see here that my production endpoint got deployed and we can use it. So let's copy it from here. And I'm gonna put it here instead. And my thing should be ready now. Now, everything is set. I just need to make the form click itself using the reference that I created. So form ref current submit, like this. There you go. It worked. It worked. So now the form is showing. Now let me show you what happens when you try to pay using this form. It's going to redirect me to that return URL that I showed you over here. And it's gonna append the encrypted data order on top of it, and I'm gonna show you the tokenized form. So let's go get a test card to do this. Here are the test cards again. I'll link everything in the description, don't worry about it. Go back to your form, put the card number, put the expiry date, always 0525 and your name. Hit pay. It's gonna do the payment, and then it's gonna oops, I made a mistake. What's going on here? If you made a mistake, just go back, go to this network tab over here and inspect, and try to find your failed API request. The reason why it's doing that is because I forgot in this, look at this return URL. I just put the encrypted string right on top, right after post. I should append it as a parameter, and to do that, it's so easy to fix. So you just gotta go back here, and instead of just doing post, I gotta put a question mark and do order and then do equal. All right, and I gotta redeploy this thing and test it again. Firebase deploy. Okay, there you have it, people. The thing got deployed. Now let's try again. Hopefully it works now. Here's the payment page, card number, expiry, CVV, my name, pay. There you go. This is what happens when you use this website at http://event.org to post things to it. It just display back the payload that was posted to it, and here it shows you that this is what Amazon Payment Services. Let me zoom in for you so you can see this stuff. Here, let's turn off this view. All right, here. This is what it sends back to your server on that endpoint, and then return URL. Gives you the access code, the card BIN, which is the first 6 digits in the card. This is useful for identifying the card bank or whatever. Some mask card information. It gives you also your MID again, your order reference, and all this useful information. And your order information is encrypted here in this parameter. Alrighty. And this is the signature. You're not going to use the signature to pay, but this is the most important thing, the token. This is the encrypted card information. Okay, so this is the first step of which is tokenizing the card, and now we're going to implement another endpoint to do the second step, which is to do the payment. We're not going to have to modify anything on the front end now. It's going to be pretty simple, and the code is going to mostly look like this endpoint, just for a different purpose. Okay, now the rest is actually pretty easy. So as I said, we don't have to make any changes on the front end side anymore. We just gotta create another endpoint, and we're gonna call it perform payment or payment, whatever. And this is gonna be the new return URL. It's gonna receive the order information. For that to make sense, let me show you the integration guide again. I'm talking about this one over here. So we need to send this payment request over there. Let's do that. Let me show you how to do that now. Okay, so this is the input where we're gonna actually send the payment request API to Amazon Payment Services, and I'm talking about this one. So let's see what this requires. This requires us to pass this payload and to this URL if it's in the test environment, and using this information. Okay, so let's take a step back and see what we have from these values passed to us by that return URL and what we don't have. So let's do two things. Let's first put together the request that's going to send this. Okay, so this is the request, and now let's see what we received from the return URL. So return data is gonna be this stuff. Let's see what we got. We just gotta go back to our old request and use that as an example. So I'm trying to find it over here. Here you go. This is the post. Well, there you go. This is it right here. Okay, so let's see what we have and what we don't have. Purchase is a hard-coded value, so we're gonna leave it there. We're getting the access code. We also getting the merchant identifier and the merchant reference. We're getting that too, of course. We're not getting the amount. We're gonna have to parse that from this big string over here. So amount, same thing with the currency. same. What about language? We're getting the language. We're not getting the email, so we need to get the email. The signature we're gonna have to regenerate it just like we did before. Token name we're getting right here. Okay, so how can I get the amount, currency, and customer email? I need to decrypt it from the string that I received from the return URL, but first I need to clean up the return URL situation. I need to stop using this placeholder over here and get the real one that I'm actually going to use. So in order to do that, I need to deploy this endpoint just for now. I'm not going to use it right away. I just need to deploy it for now. Okay, cool. So we got the production URL, the true one that we're going to use for the return URL. So here I'm going to modify my code for the creating signature to use that instead. So right now it's using this placeholder. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to put the actual true URL that I'm going to use as a return URL, which is this one. So create payment slash, and then I'm going to get the encrypted order after the slash. Now I need to deploy this for it to be actually working. But in the meantime, now I know how I'm going to get that encrypted order passed to me. Now remember, what I'm doing here is that I'm creating a string that have the order information like this. All right, and then I'm encrypting it using the request phrase over here as the secret key using this algorithm. Again, you can use any way you want to encrypt the order information. It doesn't have to be this. In this case, I used AES 256 to do the encryption, and I got the code again from ChatGPT. But again, you can use any way to encrypt the order details in the return URL that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be exactly the same way that I'm doing it. Anyways, I know that my encrypted order is going to be at the end of this return URL. Back to my payment endpoint, and I know that my encrypted order is going to be at the end of the URL. So here I say request, let's do this, request URL split it by slash, and because they're going to be at the end, if I do pop, I'm going to get the encrypted order details. So let encrypted order string be this, and now I'm going to use this method that I have to decrypt that. Decrypted order string. This is going to return me the order string. Okay, and I'm going to pass it the encrypted order string along with my request phrase, which is the same one over here. Okay, now the order string is going to contain the amount, customer email, and the currency that I need, and you can just get them like this. So the order, you can split the order string using the comma, like because that's the separator that we used earlier, and you can get the amount, you can get the currency, and you can get the customer email, and you can just, you don't need this anymore. You can go ahead and use them in your payload. Amount, currency. Now, what's going on with the amount? Why are you multiplying it by 100? And there's an explanation for this. What they're doing here is that, depending on the currency, you're gonna put the amount as an integer, adding the cents, let's say, as a part of that integer. So in the AED currency, for example, there are only 2 decimals, right? Some currencies, like for example, Bahraini dinar is 3 decimals. So if I'm working with USD or AED, which have 2 decimals, this will be 100 AED, and this would be the cents, the decimals, right? So it would be actually 100.00, right? But if I'm working with BHD currency, for example, which has 3 decimals, this would actually be just 10 BHD. All right? And this would be the decimals of that currency. This is actually explained here all across the guide right here. So you can just have a read if you want. This explains why I'm converting this. I'm converting it to a number first because I get it as a string, and then I multiply it by 100 because it's AED currency. And this is why I'm doing that with the amount. Okay, now I got everything I need to do to create the signature, okay, which is for this request. I'm gonna do it the same way that I did it earlier in the create signature request. So here, let me take this payload out of here for a second and do let payment payload equal to all that stuff. All right. And we're gonna take out the signature because we don't have it yet. We gotta generate it. So to do that, we need to do again, let signature equal generate signature, which is gonna take the params in a JSON like this, and I'm gonna take the request phrase just like we did before. And after you get it, what you're gonna do is that you're gonna add it to this payload again here, signature equal signature, and now you can use it in your API request over here. Now the nice thing about these Amazon API requests is that there are no headers, no authorization headers. You just generate the signature and put it in the payload like this, which honestly I think it's easier for me. Anyways, once you get the payment response, we're gonna trigger a redirection. You can redirect to a result page of your choosing. So I'm gonna redirect to my local result page, which I showed you earlier at the beginning of this video. So what's going on here? So I send my payment request in the API request over here, and I say if it's successful, I'm gonna redirect to this URL, to this URL, localhost, and then I'll put a parameter that says status success, and reference is the merchant reference that I get in the payment response. If not, I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna do redirect. I'm gonna say failed, and I'm gonna put the reference again. So before we deploy this, let's test it in the test environment to make sure we haven't made a mistake. Actually, I just realized that I can't do that because it's gonna redirect as a response. So actually, I just need to log in to log the response here instead. Payment response, and then just see the data that I get instead. And here, if I don't get anything, or if I get an error, I just say error, log error, response data. Cool. Now we can test it. I already got dummy data from a previous transaction that I used here. It's the one that ChatGPT cleaned up earlier for us. This one. Copy. Let's put it here. Okay. Fingers crossed. Let's test it. Now we got an error. What's going on? What's the problem? Something is wrong with my decryption. Thingy. Oh, my bad. It's because I didn't pass this at the end of the URL like I'm supposed to do that. Okay, it's stuck, and it's showing me this page, which means it's working, I think. But let's take a look at the payload logged. So the payment failed because I messed up something in the customer email. This is because here, as you can see, I am taking in the customer email in my create signature as customer_email. But here, I'm passing it as email. So one of them gotta change. So I'm gonna just change the one on my front end side because that is easy. I'm trying again. Oops, sorry, my bad. I need to copy this and make sure it matches the one over here. Okay, send. There you go. There you go, now the email is showing. And the payment now is successful. This thing is working, finally. Alright, now we can deploy to production and test in production on the actual application itself over here. Okay, it's deployed now. Final production test to make sure this thing is working. Again, grab the test card. Enter that. Expiry. 1, 2, 3. And hit pay. And there you go. The payment is done. But I messed up the order ID over here. And this is simply because I didn't, in my result page, it's not displaying the order ID. So here, what I'm doing is that in the result page, which is what is displayed here, which is what I'm redirecting to, I am reading the parameters in the URL to get these values, success and reference. So here, it's looking for a parameter called reference. I probably messed that up. It looks like I'm not passing it correctly. Here, let me just move myself. If you can see here, it's very tiny. I'm not passing my reference correctly to the return URL. So we have to fix that. I mean, we gotta get this right. This video is already super long. Here, I could just, instead of doing this on the payment response, I could just get it from here, from the payment payload. So let's just do that and try again, and hopefully it will work and everything works correctly. Deploy again. I know this is not ideal, but this is what you get when you try to record a payment tutorial video and improvise at the same time. Okay, the fix is deployed. Let's try it again. Here's the card number, and let's hit pay. Please work. Alright, finally I can end this video. So this is it. This is how you do Amazon Payment Services standard merchant page integration. It's pretty straightforward. I think it's pretty straightforward. If I didn't keep making mistakes, this video definitely could have been half the time than it is right now. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're integrating Amazon Payment Services, make sure to refer to the guide and the API references to get this right. Don't just completely rely on this video. This is just me coding on my own. I might make some mistakes here. I might not be following best practices, but yeah, I'm just playing around with it. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, please subscribe, please like, ask me any questions in the comments. I'll try to respond to them. And if you want to support this channel and get the full source code for this project, you can check out my Patreon link below in the description. Speaking of the description box, I'll link everything that I showed over here in the description box. Have a good night and see you later. Bye bye.